Hi, I'm Max Minicello. Um, I'm gonna try not to go off on like a bunch of weird tangents because I usually do that when I talk about my own content because it's a complicated mess. Like music is, it's a story with character, and I work hard at it, so it's like there's all these little nuances and things that I want to say. So I'm gonna try to keep it brief. My name's Max Minicello. I'm an instrumentalist, secondarily, but like I think primarily I'm a creator. I've got a lot of sound in my head. I don't really focus on performance as much as I do on the creation piece. And I work with Pro Tools sometimes, especially like in my music and computer tech class at school, and we do a lot of MIDI work with that. I also do a lot of MIDI stuff with like FL Studio, but like I try to focus. I'm trying to shift my focus to live recording because I am an instrumentalist and I have such a background and love for like post rock and rock in general, and like I want to create content that is based on is guitar based, I guess, like because I have such a love for it and such a background for it, background in it, I guess. And so this piece here, this is a program called Reaper, and this is sort of the thing that I do a lot of live recordings in. And my general process is I will find like an idea. Like I said, I'm an instrumentalist. Like I'll find an idea that I like, whether it's like a drum beat that I had started playing one day, and the song will start with that, or it's a guitar riff, or it's a bass riff. But like most of the time, it ends up being a guitar riff, even though I'm actually mainly a drummer. But the idea is like I'll get one really good idea. For example, in this song, it was this bit right here. It's sort of this arpeggiated thing, and I can't play it for you because the audio on my PC is like messed up, and if I open Reaper, like touch it at all or click anything in here, then it'll stop recording my voice over here, and you won't even hear any of this because Reaper will just take over the audio because it's a digital audio workstation. It does that. Um, just to prevent any stupid things from happening. But like I came up with this one riff for this song, and what I do is I once I get that one idea, I sort of meditate on it for a while, and then I play around with it until I find things that work with it. And I typically just record those on my phone as I'm like playing around with the idea in my room. And then what I'll do is I'll start sticking those ideas together in a Reaper file. I'll just hit record, play the main riff, and then start playing the other ideas over it and like taking some of them out, putting other ones in to see like what will sound good. And then once I have that, I'll start to get a general idea for how I want the song to progress and like build through like energy and also through parts. Um, and like I very much focus more on like the build and break of a song than I do like I guess like interesting melodies or something like that. Like my process is definitely more about how do I build and break the energy, like the mountain essentially that I'm building, like starting from the this sort of the intro. But for me, it all starts from that one idea, and then I build the progression outwards in my brain before I actually start recording everything. Um, but like typically, the idea just gets laid out immediately, recorded, and then I start brainstorming and messing around with other ideas over that. And once that's done, that's when I start thinking about the progression of the song, and then it just sort of comes to life. And I try to keep it very organic and spontaneous. So like if let's say I make a mistake in a recording, a lot of times if I make a mistake, I won't immediately delete it and go back. I will listen to my mistake, and if I hear something that I like in it, I'll play around with that also and see where that takes the section, right? Like for example, there was this one tone that happened like right at the end of this final chorus here, um, and that gave me the idea for an entire like extra 2 minutes. Like it was originally gonna end there, but there was this one tone. There was like this one string that rang out in my recording, And I was like, whoa, that's not bad. Like I could bring that somewhere. And so I came up with this sort of arpeggiated guitar riff that sounded like very Nirvana-esque, and I sort of ran with that and like turned it into like this heavy thing that like picked up pace and sort of became this like rolling downhill avalanche of like heavy rock, and it was great. So I one, like I start with an idea. Two, I brainstorm other ideas that work with it. Three, work on the progression. Four, I embrace mistakes and I try to make them work. I mean, obviously, if they don't, I just cut them out because. Uh, but 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 I definitely I try to keep it organic, and I try to break from the plan if I think that it sounds better, whatever new sort of component comes in. Because I believe that it should be kept organic. Um, and typically what I do is I record the guitars first. I'll record the guitars first, and as soon as I've got all of the guitars laid out, like that's the song, right? In a sense, like the chord progression and the riffs and the melodies, that's the song, right? And then what I do is I will play the bass line, which only will take me like maybe one or two takes to do the entire thing. And then the drums. And I split the drums up sometimes because just to make it a little easier. Um, but I usually, because I'm a drummer, right? I have the idea so clearly in my head that I would just improv. I would just improv the drums. So it always is guitars first, then bass, and then the drums is always the last thing I do because I'm so rhythmically minded. And the entire process, even recording the first riff that I record, I'm thinking exactly about how the drums are gonna work. Um, so that when I get here, everything else is already in place for me to just record the drums over, right? And I want the rhythm to fall perfectly. I want the rhythm. Everything has to come in place for the drums because that is where I guess my forte is as a musician, and not only that, but it's where I believe the music lies. Is like music to me is just rhythm and color, and it's the drums that just are essentially deciding where the color is split up, and then the colors the other instruments obviously, but like where that is split up, and like where it's emphasized and where it's broken, and yeah. So um, I'm trying to think of like challenges that I typically run into. I have to jump through a lot of hoops because I don't have a lot of, I guess, money. I have a little amp and I record line into my computer, so I have a lot of it's like a very poor setup technologically. Um, but I don't like bad tone, I think all of like music lies in tone, and no one cares what you're playing. Like they care if your song sounds good. Like they care if the space that you've created with sound is a real one, is an organic one. They care if you can put them in that space. And I think if your mix is bad and your tone is bad, no one cares about the crazy riffs that you're playing. Nobody cares. So the most important thing is a good tone. Um, and like creating that positive that sort of that space in sound. So my challenge a lot of the time is working with like very minimal technology, and like I don't have any state of the art mics. Like I said, I'm literally running like line out from my amp, line into my computer, and that creates a lot of static. So I have to do like all those like home remedies of like placing myself in like really awkward positions as I play guitar to like minimize any of the noise or any of the distortion. So that's like one really irritating thing that I have to deal with. Also, there's a lot of times like Reaper can be kind of finicky because it's just freeware. Like, it's not a super expensive software. Like sometimes like it'll glitch out and stuff will not record properly, or I'll run into issues with like latency. That's the biggest problem is like latency versus quality, and I'm always trying to like I run a huge risk of like stuff clipping because I don't like latency at all when I'm recording. Like I need to be monitoring need to be hearing exactly what is coming out, and I need it to come out at the same time I'm playing it because it's the rhythm is so important to me. It's everything, I think. Um, so once it becomes like I will sacrifice essentially audio quality sometimes for the for the to make sure that it's playing on time, right? And so like then I have to make up for that. And like all these all these down here with the effects, like I have EQ'd every single one of these tracks myself, like added reverb, all the effects, everything. The entire mix is done by me. All the recording is done by me. The editing and the mastering of the track, everything is done by me. Um, and I have to EQ all of these to make up for like some of the like mess ups in the program that the program itself makes. So that's very frustrating. And like typically once all of this is done and all the effects and everything is lined out, I'll start like throwing in like finishing touches. Like in some of my projects, I'll throw in like a sample. You know, like I like to accent some things. Like sometimes I'll be like, I want that to hit harder, but I don't just want to increase the volume. I want the timbre to be different, you know? So I'll be like this snare hit like really needs to have some punch and some extra like sort of echo. So I'll go online and find like a snare sample, or I'll just pull one from FL Studio. And I'll put it in like that one spot. Like I know there's this one song that I have where I literally I have this old bottle collection in my closet, and I went upstairs and I tested like a bunch of different bottles until I found one that had the exact sound that I wanted, and I hit that into my phone's microphone and then EQ'd it until it sounded like weird and funky, and I put it into this song that I was working on. But like it's like the finishing touches and then all the editing is done like down here. And sometimes even then, that's how the song can evolve. Like if I change some of the reverb and I mess with like the panning or something, it will totally change the space, you know? Like it will change like how I'm visualizing my song. Like for example, like this was never like this fast-paced thing that ended up being at the end would not have been a thing if it were not for that screw up that I had in this last chorus, but I didn't even notice it until I stripped some of the reverb out and it rang to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's an idea I can run with." So like even in the editing process sometimes I will discover something and then I will go back and record more. So I'll have more tracks and then I'll edit those. So I'm not like super militant about sticking to a process. Like I really believe in the organicness of music, and I try to live record everything, and I don't like to quantize a lot of my MIDI sometimes. Like I like to try to I know a lot of people will just play their stuff out of time and then try to get it right. But like there's something so important about having a human sense of rhythm in your music. I think super quantized stuff, even if you randomize it, people will get the quantized and they'll like get it to like not be quite perfect. But I think, you know, like you gotta play it live. Like it's gotta be human. Like music has gotta be human. We don't care about computers, you know? Um, and that's why there's that whole cycle of like human tries to mimic machine and machine tries to mimic human, right? Like we try to get our super quantized beats to sound slightly off, you know. We try to add in little slight differences so that it sounds more human, and us as people we try to play more, you know, consistently make ourselves sound more like as if a machine were doing it, as if we're machines, you know? Um, so there's that whole cycle. I guess the like massive takeaway from all of this is that like I guess the biggest part of my musical like my creation process is the spontaneity of it and the organicness of it. And it's like I spend a lot of time with ideas playing around with them, but not not writing the entire song all the way out and deciding, okay, this is what I'm going to do, go into the recording process, get it done, done, right? For me, sometimes the recording process and the writing process are simultaneous, and like I'll record this riff, right? And that's the idea that I have beforehand, and then I'll get inspired by that to like write an intro, and then like what am I going to put under that? Ooh, maybe I should add in some like crashes with the drums here to like build it, you know? And it's like I really think that like I being a lone person, like I don't have a band, so I can't write a song and have people play along with that and like inspire me. So my the recording process for me is like when I record one instrument, that will inspire the parts of the other instruments. So it ends up always being super organic. Like never to a plan or a format. Like there's always something that I change halfway through the process because I'm inspired by what I just played or a mistake that I made. And I think like that's the huge thing about my music is that it's like it has such a human aspect to it. And like for example, this song "Where I Stand," it's a piano piece that I recorded. I just turned on a strings drone. It's literally a power chord of strings with a ton of reverb on it in FL Studio, and I just got this really mellow piano patch and just played, and I just hit record, and I did like 4 takes, and on the fourth take I was like, that's what I want, and then I went back and I edited a couple of the notes, and other than that, I was like, I want to leave it the way that it is, even with like some of the little trip ups and mistakes that I made. And that actually ended up being one of my most popular songs because I've obviously I've published a lot of them, and a lot of my friends have like listened to them, and I I try to make it as I try to create a space. I try to create a space. I try to embrace like sort of the spontaneity and the organic side of creating music. Um, and yeah, that's really my process. That's really everything. That's really everything. Thank you for listening. That's been a I don't know if this is a way too long of a video. I'm sorry if it's super long, but like I said, I love this stuff, you know? Like I love it with everything that I am, so I could talk about it for hours, you know? I could talk about everything I did in this song for hours. But I hope that this was enough. I hope that it wasn't too much. Um, Thank you for listening again, and that's all.